What's up, guys? Welcome to Gamescript. We're looking at the Dallas Cowboys versus the Houston Texans. We got a team whose season is over versus a team who's fighting to keep the lead in their division, and it'll be an interesting game to break down. I'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom with Heat Seeker Sports. You're watching Gamescript. Going to be breaking down the Houston Texans versus the Dallas Cowboys. They're playing in Dallas. We got a 41.5-point total with Houston as 7-point favorites in this one. And it's a matchup that is pretty lopsided. We got a lot of injuries to the Dallas side. We have some injuries to Houston's side, but Dallas really has nothing to play for at this point. And Houston is playing for their division, basically. So it's going to be an interesting game to break down. Make sure to hit the like button. Looking for 30 likes so we can put out a shorter video later on, or at least put my favorites in the comments section. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. You want to subscribe to the channel so you can sign up for alerts to know when these shows come out. Gamescript I do for basically every single game slate, and then I do the player pool show for the main slates. And I also do a lot of short videos for underdog or for my favorite plays for these showdown slates. So make sure to subscribe. I'm also trying to get to 1,200 subscribers. I'm only about 30 short of that. I wanted to try to get there by the end of this week, by the end of week 11. So by the end of today, basically. So if you guys can hit that subscribe button, that'd be a huge help. So let's get into this breakdown. So on these shows, I always break down the player pool and then get into the lineup builds. So like I said at the top, this is an interesting matchup because Dallas is basically, their season is over. They've lost their starting quarterback, Dak Prescott, probably for the season. I think it's for the season. He's having surgery on his hamstring. Just a bad scene for Dallas overall. It's just been horrible all season. People spent first overall pick capital on CeeDee Lamb, and he has not delivered this year. And, it's just been a rough season for the Cowboys. And now they face the Houston Texans, who've had a bit of a rough patch in themselves. They've been missing a bunch of their key players. Nico Collins comes back tonight. That's a good thing for the team. And then on top of that, they're losing. They're still missing Will Anderson. We got a couple more injuries. Defensive tackle Foley Fatukasi is out, and cornerback Kamari Lassiter is questionable. So that's an important one. We want to make sure that Lassiter is in to help out with that secondary. Stingley was questionable earlier in the week, but he's not on the injury report now, so that's good for the Texans. As far as the Cowboys, Micah Parsons returned last week, which is good. DeMarcus Lawrence is still on IR. Sam Williams on IR. Defensive end Marshawn Nealand on IR. Deron Bland is out. Mani Oruwari is on IR, and Jordan Lewis is out too. So banged up secondary for the Cowboys, missing a lot of pieces on the defensive end there. So, rough defense overall for the Cowboys, on top of missing Dak Prescott and all the offensive struggles that they've gone through this season so far. So it's setting up to be basically a blowout for the Texans side. The Texans need a win. They have a 1-game lead in their division over the Colts. And on top of that, they just want to get the ball rolling before they head into the playoffs. So Texans are looking to make probably a statement win tonight. They want to get Nico Collins back up and running. They're playing against kind of a cross across town, I guess you could say, rivalry with the Dallas Cowboys. I know a lot of Houston fans are not fans of the Cowboys, so they could be looking to make a statement and just embarrass the Cowboys outright. So we'll see what happens in this game tonight. Cooper Rush looking like the starting quarterback. He started last week against the Eagles, was an absolute disaster. 0 fantasy points. I believe he had 0.9 yards per completion or something in that range. So, very rough start for Cooper Rush. Dak Prescott was struggling before Cooper Rush even took this start, and he did not look good at all. And he was so bad that Trey Lance came in to spell him at some point in that game. Would not be surprised to see that happen again tonight. And Trey Lance actually outscored him by scoring 1.54 fantasy points last week. So gives you an idea of the situation there. The blowout last week was 34-6 in favor of Philadelphia. To me, it makes no sense to start Cooper Rush. You spent some capital to get Trey Lance in there. You might as well see what you got there and give him a chance to start. Of course, he was a 3rd overall pick by San Francisco a few years back. Infamously could not get the starting job over Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, who went on to become basically one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, whereas Trey Lance has took the bench in San Francisco, and now he's been riding the bench behind Cooper Kupp as a 3rd-string quarterback for the Cowboys. So, it would be good for Dallas at this point. Like, the guy needs reps. He had infamously no reps in college, and he still hasn't had any reps in the NFL really. So you got to get that guy some playing time. This would be the perfect game to do it. At least they're missing Will Anderson, so the defense is a little bit weaker than it normally would be. It'd be good for Lance to get some work, maybe some opportunity there. But apparently Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback. Joe Mixon is going to be probably in the best spot. He's probably going to be the highest owned captain. 7-point favorites. They are on the road, but they're 7-point favorites, and just Dallas is just going to be difficult to put up a scenario with them being competitive or winning this game. They've been giving up 26 DraftKings points a game to the running back position on top of that. So that's a really good matchup for Mixon. And he's likely to be the highest owned captain by a long shot, probably. CeeDee Lamb has not done anything this year, really. He had that 142-point game, but, he struggled to hit like 20 DraftKings points in the rest of his game. I think he had one other game over 20. He had that 23-point game against the Giants. But he should get volume at least. But, he can't justify that $10,800 price tag. That's the only problem. Or it'll be difficult for him to. He's going to be a contrarian play. If you see him at a super low ownership, then he'd be interesting because he's going to get volume. But he might have Stingley on him. Although I don't know how much Stingley travels to the let me take a look and see if Stingley goes into the slot very often. Lamb runs 50% of his routes in the slot. So let's see where Stingley does. Looking at Stingley, he is 80% on the left side of the field. So, that's the spot of the field opposite where CeeDee Lamb runs his second most routes. Lamb runs about 25% of his routes from the right side of the field. Stingley is more likely to face, Jalen Brooks and Jalen Tolbert tonight. So those guys are going to take a ding with that matchup. And Lassiter, if he plays, he is primarily the opposite side as Stingley. He's also a difficult matchup. So, it's going to be important to see if Lassiter plays, because if he plays, basically you might as well write off all these receivers for for Dallas, even though they're going to be playing catch up all night. But it's going to be a rough one for Dallas for trying to figure out which of these guys to start tonight. But CD Lamb in the slot might be the safest guy on Dallas to start. So that's going to be making an interesting lineup decision for us. As far as fantasy points to the quarterback position, Houston's been giving up 17.7 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. That's actually one of the better matchups a quarterback can face. Slot receivers, as I just mentioned, they're getting 13.7 DraftKings points a game. So it's a decent matchup for CD Lamb overall. It's just he doesn't have a quarterback that can get the ball to him necessarily. But let's see, the Jalen Petrie is going to be the corner that goes up against Lamb most often, and that's an average matchup for CD Lamb. So just keep that in mind. 50% of Lamb's routes though are going to be on the outside, and that's going to be facing those difficult corners. So Lamb probably has the most upside. Well, he obviously has the most upside, but he has the most upside in matchup as well for the Cowboys. Nico Collins makes his return this week. He went out in week 5. He actually went out scoring a touchdown in that game. He only had 2 targets in that game, and he scored 15 DraftKings points. So Nico Collins is just a stud. If he comes back with low ownership in the captain, that's going to make a good decision point for us. Or if he comes in highly owned and he takes some of Mixon's ownership away, then that's going to make Mixon more interesting for us. Don't have any ownership data right now, but make sure to keep an eye on that ownership information because that's going to help us make that captain decision. Stroud has been struggling without Nico. He's been struggling in general this year. I didn't draft him in best ball because I figured he'd have a year's worth of tape on him. Defenses aren't going to take him as lightly this year, and it's shown up. He's had a much more difficult time this year. He only has 2 weeks over 20 DraftKings points, and both those came with Nico Collins. But even with Nico Collins, only 2 out of 5 weeks over 20 DraftKings points. So Stroud, though, makes for an interesting play. He might not get the volume to get there if they take a big enough lead and it's more, but they might decide to go in a situation where they want to get that pass game going as well, especially with Nico Collins back. And this is going to be a good week for them to kind of tee off on that. Tank Dell would also make an interesting captain at 9,400. Yeah, it's 9,400 in the flex. Dell, if Nico's back, will take a lot of attention off of Dell, and Dell runs a lot of his routes out wide, where Houston is getting 21.4 DraftKings points from the Dallas defense. Slot receivers get 11.1 points from Dallas's defense. That is where we saw Mechie make a name for himself last week. I think after last week's performance, we'll likely see Mechie playing more in the slot. He'll probably be their de facto slot receiver at this point. High hopes for him when they drafted him. He missed a season with a cancer issue. Like he'd been diagnosed with cancer, and he is, I believe, I don't know if he's completely free. I would imagine he's completely free at this point. But he is, he's a guy that everyone had high hopes for, and he's starting to work his way back in now. Been having his opportunity these last 3 weeks in particular: 4 targets, 2 targets, 6 targets. Good to see him have that breakout game, 18.4 DraftKings points against Detroit last week. So I would not be surprised if we see Mechie take a bigger role in this offense now that he seems to be, back to playing shape and looking good last week. So let's see. We got Rico Dowdle. Dowdle's another interesting guy on the Dallas side. Let's see what he does in blowouts, though. Last week he had 8.6 DraftKings points. He only had 3 targets getting blown out by Philly. Let's look at the snap shares because this could be important for tonight. Hunter Lipke is out tonight. That's one of the backup quarterbacks who would get run in a blowout. But if we're looking at Dallas, Dowdle had a 52% snap share in that blowout. Elliott had 22%. Lipke had 27%, but like I said, he's out. So that work, Dalvin Cook and Deuce Vaughn each got 0% last week. Now, one of those dudes might pick up that 27% snap share from Lipke, maybe even more than that tonight. I would put my money on Deuce Vaughn maybe taking that. Let's see. Just taking a look here. Vaughn has not had any snap shares since the beginning of the season. Meanwhile, Dalvin Cook, he's had a few weeks. Maybe Dalvin Cook would get some run in that situation. He had 27% snap share a couple weeks ago. So that would be week 8. Let's take a look at what the score was in week 8. Week 8, it was they lost 30-24. So tough to say which one of these guys, but Cook is only 1,400 and Vaughn is only 400. So Vaughn might be interesting at 400 if you wanted to get a lot of these studs in. But we got to keep an eye, too, on his playing status as we get closer because he might be a healthy scratch for all we know. Let's see. Cooper Rush has a good matchup. I mean, Houston's given up 17 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position, but Dallas is banged up on their offensive line on top of all those other injuries. Take a look real quick. Zach Martin is questionable. A little bit thin at right tackle. Earl Bostic is on IR. Left guard Nathan Thomas is on IR. Left tackle Chuma Igoda. Like these are all depth guys, but gives you an idea. They're dealing with some depth issues on the offensive line. On top of all the other injuries that they've had, Lipke is doubtful. He's not officially out, but he's doubtful. Zach Martin, I think I mentioned, right guard is questionable. So, but missing Will Anderson on the Texans side, maybe kind of cancels each other out there. Let's see. Texans D is I don't think I've seen a D that expensive before at 6,200, but they are in play. They've had a lot of weeks over double-digit points. Cooper Rush was a disaster. They're going to be forced to throw. Like Texans D is in play. Trey Lance at 6K, he's in play. Jake Ferguson has, he got 5 targets last week. He's been getting targets. It's not a horrible matchup. Some tight ends have had success against the Texans recently. So Ferguson is in play. Not overly excited to play him, but maybe with those rough matchups that the corners on the wideouts have, maybe Jake Ferguson is one of the guys that we can rotate in. It's probably a 5-1 type of build for Houston. If that gets overowned, Don't be afraid to plug in like multiple of these Cowboys. Fairbairn is going to be in play. Micah Parsons is back in, and CJ Stroud has struggled with pressure, even when they got Nico Collins back in. Like, I would not be surprised to see Fairbairn have multiple opportunities tonight at field goals. He's at 5,400. Aubrey, I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get, but when Dak was healthy, they were rolling. He was rolling. He was getting like double-digit points every week, just about. He still had 9 even against Atlanta a couple weeks ago, but he hasn't been as active recently. Dalton Schultz, this is a revenge game for Schultz. I believe this is probably the first time that he's played Dallas since he got traded. I think the last game that he played was when he caught the ball out of bounds when they were making a run in the playoff game. So cost the team. There was a lot of negativity about it, but then he got traded to Houston, or he signed with Houston, whatever the situation was. Dallas is giving up 10.8 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. Don't be surprised to give him an opportunity in the end zone facing his old team. Like teams like to do that kind of stuff. He's at 5K. Jalen Tolbert has that difficult matchup. It's probably going to be difficult to put any of these wideouts from Dallas in. Mechie has a decent matchup. It's 11.1 DraftKings points. He's a guy that we can keep in our player pool at 4K. Cowboys D. I don't hate Cowboys D. Like, they still got some players on the team, and they're able to put pressure on the quarterback. But I just see the Texans are going to be putting up a lot of points. So the Cowboys D is going to have to get some sort of a interception, or they're going to need to score a touchdown to pay off, basically. But at 3,600, they might be the only one worth playing on the Cowboys. Hutchinson with Nico back, and Mechie seems to have taken that slot role. I think we're going to see less Hutchinson. Mingo. Okay, so Mingo might be interesting because they made a big play for trade for Mingo, and he didn't get very much opportunity last week. He was fresh on the team, but they traded for the guy. He's 3,200, and they gave up some decent. I think they gave up a 3rd-round pick for him or something like that. So Mingo is in play at 3,200. He might be interesting. Outside of that, maybe Gunbawali might be interesting in a blowout scenario. They might decide to rest Mixon. That would not surprise me. And as we go further down here, Elliott fumbled at the goal line, but he gets goal line carries nonetheless. How often are they going to be at the goal line is the question. He had 10 DraftKings points against San Francisco a couple weeks ago. Pierce might be the guy to get some. He's not injured. He's been injured recently, but he might be a guy to get some run if they take a huge lead and Mixon, they decide to rest Mixon. They're getting ready for a push in the playoffs. Don't be surprised to see them start to give Mixon a little bit of rest here. Other than that, like I said, Cook, Deuce Vaughn might be interesting. If we're envisioning a blowout situation, they decide to give some of these other players some looks. Probably Vaughn over Cook. They're going to want to give Vaughn looks. Cook is, he's just a guy to back up Zeke, basically. So let's get into building this lineup real quick. Make sure to hit that like button. Looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video, or at least put my picks in the comment section. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you know when those shorter videos come out. Help me get to 1,200. I'm 30 away from that. All right, let's get into this. So I think Mixon or Nico, depending on where the captain ownership falls. Let's get Nico in there too. And let's get Stroud in there. I think those are the volume plays. If we wanted to put Lamb in there, leaves us at 1,200 per guy. We could go down to Deuce Vaughn here and get him in at 400. Leaves us with 2,100. I mean, you got Brooks as an option. I think Brooks had a decent amount of playing time. Turpin is another guy that might benefit from. Surprised he didn't get much. He didn't get any work last week, but he's gotten 4 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets. 7 targets in that game where they got blown out by Detroit. Week 6. What was Dowdle's situation in week 6? Week 6, Dowdle was playing. He also got 6 targets, so maybe Turpin might be a guy in play at 1,200 for one of those cheap guys. I like him better than Cook. I like, Stover is another guy that might get some play. He's a rookie tight end has a pretty good profile. Would not be surprised if they're in a blowout situation to see him get some run. But that kind of gives you an idea if you want to go like this type of route. If we want to take out Lamb, maybe let's put in the kicker, because I like Fairbairn to get some kicks tonight. If we have Vaughn in there, that's 7,500. Let's put Turpin in there instead. It's going to leave us 6,700. I mean, at that point, we can put in that Texans D. Doesn't hurt us because we got that quarterback dead zone underneath it, and then we got Ferguson and Aubrey as options, and Schultz. Schultz, I don't hate. Gives us a second target for Stroud, and honestly, if you put Schultz in there, we're going to leave 1,700 on the table. That would help us out. I do want to get probably like Lamb or Dowdle. I would probably want to put Lamb or Dowdle on these teams, but Texans have been rough against running backs too, giving up only 18 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. But Dowdle in that blowout last week, like I said, he still had 8.6 DraftKings points. That might have been enough to get him in the optimal as the only Cowboy. 3 targets in that game. Not as many targets as I would like to see against a Cooper Rush under duress. But if we wanted to go in that direction, maybe we take Stroud out and put Dowdle in. Let's get Fairbairn back in there. Fairbairn and Mixon help tell a story of why Stroud is not in this lineup, because they're getting field goals and touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. And then Nico Collins is getting PPR points. Dowdle getting the only points for the Dallas side. We can get Schultz in there too. Leaves us with 3,700. You got Cowboys D, Mingo. You got that Mingo situation there. So let's switch it out. I think we can just do a 1v1 switch here and get Collins in the captain and get Mixon in there. Let's get rid of Dowdle and put Stroud back in there. Leaves us with 3,200. 3,200 gets us Mingo, basically. Turpin, another option if you want to leave salary on the table, differentiate. It's a 5-1 build. I like this. I like this direction, to go in this direction. If you wanted to put in Lipke into, I mean, not Lipke. Turpin might be an advantage too with no Lipke in there. It could get more work for him. So if you put him in there, you could take out Schultz if you wanted to and put in that defense. You'd have that option. Let's see. Let's clear this out. I don't really have any long shot guys for captain. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward tonight. If you wanted to put Tank Dell in there, though, let's say that Nico is, still trying to work his way back. Let's get Mixon in there. Let's put Lamb and let's put Stroud. Let's put Turpin in there. Now I want to get. Yeah, see, I don't like this with Lamb. Let's put Dowdle in there. So at least we can get Fairbairn maybe. And then at that point we got like Deuce Vaughn as our option. If we wanted to, say, maybe Dallas's D is able to get pressure on them and get a pick six or something, and we wanted that to be. I mean, this would be a way to differentiate yourself, is having Cowboys D as your only Dallas player. Or you could get Ferguson in with that defense. You put Lance in there, like if you think that things are going to go horrible for Cooper Rush. Shout out to Siege on that one. We're 100 short of the Texans. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think that there might be something there with that Cowboys D as the only player on the Cowboys to play, because that could be, with Micah Parsons back, CJ Stroud struggles under pressure, could force them into a couple mistakes. I still think that they win handily, but nobody's going to have the Cowboys D as their only player. And the Cowboys D might be the only one that, like, even in that blowout last week, they had 8 DraftKings points. Do we think that any of these guys are going to score higher than 8 DraftKings points and fit in the lineup? If CeeDee Lamb scores 8 DraftKings points, guess what? He's 10,800. Like, there's a lot of limitations with a salary like that. Rico Dowdle might not score over 8 DraftKings points. He had 8.6 last week, and he was 3 times more expensive than that defense is right now. So keep that in mind with the Cowboys D. That might be an interesting play tonight. And I'll think on it myself. Make sure to hit that like button to get me the 30 likes so we can put out that shorter video later on. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you get the alert when the shorter video comes out. And I will see you guys later on.